Good morning. Welcome to our annual Reflections of Excellence panel discussion. On behalf of the Morehouse College family, it is my distinct honor to welcome our 2014 Benny and Candle Award recipients to the campus. We also extend greetings and welcome to our students, parents, faculty, staff, extended family, and alumni. Not only are we celebrating our Benny and Candle Award recipients today, we're also celebrating a milestone in the life of the college, the inauguration of a new president. Since its inception 147 years ago, it has been the mission of Morehouse College to cultivate the hearts and minds of young men. Our philosophy is that by combining equal parts of academic instructions as well as lessons in service and integrity, Morehouse will instill in her sons the desire to improve the conditions of the world. Ultimately, our students will leave these sacred grounds prepared to bear fruit, in their respective global communities. But now, let's get to our Reflections of Excellence program. Tonight, the college will formally recognize our 5 honorees at the 26th Annual A Candle in the Dark Gala. With this program, a special feature of our Founders Week celebration, will allow you the opportunity to hear our honorees discuss their lives and accomplishments. Our moderator this morning is Erin Coleman. Erin is an Emmy Award-winning anchor and reporter at WSB-TV, where she is one half of the anchor team for Channel 2 Action News at 4. She earned a bachelor's degree in English from Brown University and a master's degree from Columbia University's Graduate School of Journalism. Prior to coming to Atlanta in 2009 to work for Channel 2, Erin made career stops in both Arkansas and North Carolina. Her career in journalism began at the ABC affiliate in Jonesboro, Arkansas, after graduating from Brown. About a year later, she moved to Greensboro, North Carolina, and spent 3 years at WFMY-TV before moving about an hour east to Raleigh, where she worked as a reporter and a weekend morning news anchor at WRAL-TV. Over the years, Erin has covered everything from hurricanes to politics. But certainly, one of her career highlights was her one-on-one interview with then Senator Barack Obama during one of his presidential campaign stops in North Carolina. Erin is a native of Philadelphia and a member of the National Association of Black Journalists and the Junior League. Please join me in welcoming our moderator, Erin Coleman.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Davidson, for that warm introduction. It's so great to be here and to see so many of you here. We survived the Snowmageddon, ice jam, whatever we're calling this round that we had. After 39 hours of continuous coverage, that'll take a lot out of you, but I have been looking forward to this for weeks now, and there is no place I would rather be than here at Morehouse. I love Morehouse, my god brother. I got to shout him out. He is a graduate of Morehouse and is now a professor here. Have a couple of ex-boyfriends who went to Morehouse. I will not name them, but Morehouse produces some of the best men, and so I love being here. So again, I am honored to be here, and this is indeed a very special day. Let me also add my congratulations to the President, President Wilson, on his inauguration. We look forward to watching his stewardship of this fine institution. So let's move quickly into our Reflections of Excellence program. This is our opportunity to hear firsthand from the 2014 Benny and Candle Award recipients about the experiences and the challenges that have led to their individual successes. Today we will hear from change agents who have supplied voice and vision in their respective fields. But before we get started, we do have a few housekeeping rules. the first thing that we ask, if you have a cell phone, an iPad, a Droid, a Galaxy, a tablet, a pager, you shouldn't have a pager, but if you have a pager, cut it off, turn it on silent, please, because we don't want any interruptions. Also, there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions, and we encourage that at the end of the program. And this will allow us to make better use of the time that we have with these exceptional individuals. Now, let's meet our honorees. Our first honoree is James H. Shelton III. He is the Acting Deputy Secretary of Education and a member of the Morehouse College class of 1989. This evening, he will be honored with the 2014 Benny Achievement Award. Following his graduation from Morehouse, Shelton began a career developing computer systems. He has since worked as a partner for a national school management company and as a consultant with McKinsey & Company, advising corporate executives on business strategies and organizational design. Shelton has also run his own education-related business, setting up charter and contract schools. Prior to being tapped by the Obama administration, he worked for more than 5 years as an educational program manager for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. With a working background in both education and computer systems, he is uniquely qualified to talk about educational innovation. In his current role as the Acting Deputy Secretary of Education, Shelton oversees a broad range of management, policy, and program functions. In addition to his professional pursuits, he is an active volunteer in his local community, as well as a member of several boards. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the 2014 Benny Achievement Award recipient, Morehouse alumnus, James H. Shelton III.
Thank you. Good morning. Come on, y'all. Good morning. So I'm excited to be here with you. I'm honored, frankly, more than honored to be on the stage with the fellow recipients. It is one of those moments when I'm wondering why when I look at the accomplishments of the people beside me. But I do want to spend a few minutes because I do think I'm on a learning journey and share some of the things that I think I am learning on the way. Because it has not always been easy. And I think that my being here should give hope to a lot of other folks. I grew up in D.C., very proud of my D.C. heritage. I grew up in the part of D.C., though, that many cities have where people say you ought not go if you're not from there. And I had a great opportunity to go to have a great education, a better education than many of my friends. And it was in that time that I saw an immediate splitting of the trajectory of our lives. It became very clear to me that my educational opportunity was going to change my life in a way that their educational life was going to actually change theirs, not for the better. I did well in school, but I wanted to be in education because of what I'd seen. But I was told not to go into education right away because, as my family said, you need to make some money first. And when you think about the importance of education and the fact that people would tell someone who wants to go into education that it's not the right thing to do, as important as it says something is wrong with the way we have our values aligned as a country. But let's skip ahead on that part. So I was good in math and science, and somebody said, if you're good in math and science, you ought to be an engineer. And I actually didn't talk to a lot of people, so I just did that. I came to Morehouse. I majored in computer science and engineering. I was very fortunate to have done well in school, so I came down here on a scholarship, which I promptly lost my freshman year. That was an interesting experience. I remember taking calculus with Dr. Jones. I was very confident because I'd taken calculus before. It didn't work out so well. And in that context, I lost my scholarship, and I had to reset my expectations and figure out how I was going to complete college because it was not clear my family had the money for it, even though my brother had gone to Morehouse before me. So we figured it out. I stayed, I worked, I took time off. I went and did a cooperative with Monsanto, took a semester off, came back, had a very interesting experience where Benjamin McLaurin, who many of you in this room know, asked me to do a favor, which was to interview with this company called Exxon, who was coming to campus for the first time. And I took that opportunity just to be helpful. And when I did that, they called back to offer me a job. Fortunately, I was committed to the company that I had said yes to the prior year. And in that moment, I realized that I had the opportunity in that one summer to make more money than I would have made the entire 6 months previously. And that it would have allowed me to finish school on time if I doubled up on my credits. And so I made the decision to take that. It was the first time I'd ever broken my word that I was aware of. It was a hard decision. It changed my life for the better. I don't know what the lesson is in that. But I know to this day, I still look back with regret on having broken my word to the company that I said I would go back to. So let me fast forward, because I could stay here for a while. My Morehouse experience changed my life. It surrounded me with other young black men who wanted to do the same things I did, who were pursuing excellence, who wanted to change the world, who wanted to do great things and knew that they could. I left Morehouse going to do computer systems work, setting out on that path to make money. Did well enough my first job to go to Stanford, knowing I wanted to be in education, to do both a degree in education and a degree in business. I happened to be in graduate school at the same time as the Los Angeles riots, and so had the opportunity to go to Los Angeles and work on rebuilding that city and think about what is it that actually causes communities to explode, some to succeed and some to fail. I came back and graduated thinking I was going to go into management consulting right away, but it was 1993 and I went and worked on the first free elections in South Africa. I had seen my first glimpse of what poverty really looked like when I took the spring tour with Morehouse and went to Brazil. We think we know poverty in this country. All of you probably know. We have no idea. Went to South Africa to prepare for the first free elections and saw firsthand what it means to be denied the right to participate in your civic community, to not have the right to vote, to not have the ability to promise your child a better life than the one that you had. And it put my life in a different perspective. I realized that even though I thought things were difficult, I had no idea of the challenges that people were facing and the context and the freedoms that I took for granted, how much they actually meant. So I tell you that long part of the story because it set up all the rest of the story. I came back, I worked for a consulting firm, I did private equity, I started a company, I sold the company. Not all according to plan, ups and downs all along the way. So I only have 3 or 4 lessons learned that I want to share here at the end. Now as I sit here as the still acting Deputy Secretary while we wait for Congress to confirm me. The first one is a lesson that I take from a story that I heard about a grandfather talking to his grandson, who was looking up at a cloudy sky and rainy sky one day and said, "Oh, these rainy days, Grandpa, I can't stand them. I wish the sun would shine." And the grandfather said, "Son, the sun is always shining, whether you can see it or not." That mantra, those words of faith, when things are not going well, always, always centers me. To know that whether it is your faith in God or your faith in the way that things ought to be, that truth is always shining through, whether you can see it in that moment or not, sustains me. The second thing is, only get into partnerships with people you want to get into trouble with. Because you ultimately always will. And the only way you'll get out is if you can trust them completely. And then finally, because I'm about to get the hook, doers beat talkers every time. People who do beat people who talk every time. And the world is full of talkers. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next honoree is the late Reginald A. Lindsay, Morehouse class of 1968. Tonight, he will posthumously receive the 2014 Benny Trailblazer Award. The Honorable Reginald Lindsay was born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama during the pre-civil rights era. During his youth, many public facilities, including water fountains, restaurants, and schools, were still legally segregated by race. And despite enduring all of the indignities and disadvantages of racism, Judge Lindsay defied the odds and rose to the highest levels of the legal profession. During his senior year in high school, Lindsay earned a Merrill Early Admission Scholarship to Morehouse. And while attending Morehouse, he received an additional Merrill Scholarship for travel and study abroad. He used the scholarship to study at the University of Valencia, Spain, where he also taught English as a second language at the Institute of North American Studies. After graduating from Morehouse, Lindsay attended Harvard Law School, where he served as president of the Black Law Student Association and was among the first African Americans in the late 20th century to graduate from the institution. In time, he joined Hill & Barlow, one of Boston's oldest and most prestigious law firms, becoming the firm's first African American partner. Lindsay spent a large part of his legal career in private practice. And in 1993, he was appointed by President Bill Clinton to the U.S. District Court for the District of Massachusetts, making him the second African American on the federal bench in the state. Lindsay was a member of numerous professional associations, including the American Bar Association, the National Bar Association, and the Federal Judges Association, to name a few. In reflecting on his legacy, many have commented that Judge Lindsay was a man who treated everyone fairly and with dignity and respect. This afternoon, Judge Lindsay's widow, Mrs. Cheryl Lindsay, is here with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in honoring the life and legacy of the 2014 Benny Trailblazer Award recipient, Morehouse alumnus, the late Justice Reginald Lindsay, as we hear reflections from Mrs. Cheryl Lindsay.
Good morning. Reginald C. Lindsay, the Trailblazer. Since Reginald C. Lindsay is not here to speak for himself, I find myself in the uncomfortable position of trying to speak for him. Though I was his wife and confidant for nearly 38 years, he was the great speaker and storyteller. I will attempt to recall some of the things that I heard him say were the greatest influences in his life. I know, for instance, that he credited 4 women with having profound impact on his life prior to beginning his professional life. The first 2 were his grandmother and mother. They were the ones who helped him develop his moral compass and his love of learning. One of the stories that he often told was how, when he was about 9 years old, his mother took $10 from his piggy bank and used it toward the purchase of a set of the World Book encyclopedias, something which he did not immediately appreciate. But it was not long before he began to choose a topic to read about and study. That soon became a daily activity which he relished, and it established him as one of the smart kids because of all the random facts that he knew. The next woman who was a great influence in his life was his high school English and Spanish teacher. It was she who got him to consider coming to Morehouse College. She had been a Spelman graduate. Once he got to Morehouse, he found he had a special mentor in his English professor, Dr. Jeanette Hume Lutton. Theirs became a friendship that lasted until her death in 2006. One of the things which I believe had a major impact on his career was his receiving a Merrill Scholarship twice. First, as was mentioned, he was a recipient of the Early Admission Scholarship, meaning he never graduated from high school. Initially, that fact was of great concern to his grandmother, in case he didn't graduate from Morehouse. He then went on to receive a Merrill Scholarship to study in Valencia, Spain for a year. Those two circumstances meant he got to be a graduate in the college's centennial year, 1967, and the last year at the college of his hero, President Benjamin Elijah Mays. It was here that he developed his ability to strive for what was right rather than what was expedient. After his years at Morehouse, Reg went on to become one of the first group of Morehouse graduates to enter Harvard Law School. He soon assumed a leadership role in the Black American Law Student Association. These educational opportunities allowed him to develop what may have been his greatest gift of all, his incredible work ethic. I can't think of anyone in his court family who has spoken about him since his passing, who has not mentioned how often he was among the last to leave the courthouse in the evening. That was because he would always work until the language of his ruling was exactly right. One of his interns from his earliest years on the bench spoke about how she had spent an inordinate amount of time on a habeas petition and how he kindly called her into his office and returned a mocked-up version of her original draft. She told, however, how no sentence in the draft remained intact. That left her in awe, however, of the gentle way in which he instructed her on legal principles and the thoughtful application of law of facts, and about the care and time he spent with her. That mentor-mentee relationship evolved into a true friendship. Today, that young woman, who was the chief of the Civil Rights Division of the Massachusetts Attorney General's office, is now going on to run for Massachusetts Attorney General. If you think that the judge was always super serious with his staff, law clerks, and interns, you would be wrong. As his administrative assistant explained it, what had once started out as a weekly staff lunch with the judge turned into a daily lunch with him. And it turned into a daily lunch with him, not because he required it, but because that was everybody's choice. He had a wry sense of humor and was a masterful storyteller. He had one law clerk who wanted to follow him around with a tape recorder so that she could perhaps write his life story. He would have none of that. His staff and clerks all got to feel that they were part of his family because of the interest he took in their lives and the time he would spend with them discussing their assigned cases and writings. There were, however, other times when they would digress and end up talking about favorite sports teams or listening to music. When it came to the music, sometimes he would play some of his favorite Motown hits, having them pay special attention to the string section or having them listen to examples of a song's complex orchestrations. The same warmth and inclusive atmosphere that he displayed with his law clerks and staff carried over into the summer months when the chambers welcomed the assigned high school student from a program called the Judge David S. Nelson Fellowship. That program was co-founded by Judge Lindsay and two of his colleagues in memory of the first African-American federal judge in Massachusetts. The program is one of the court's educational programs designed to familiarize young people with the judicial system. Part of the students' time during the summer is spent working in the judge's chambers. One distinctive characteristic of the trailblazer that was Reginald Lindsay that I have not touched upon, but which made me most proud, was the fact that he managed the bulk of his professional life from a wheelchair, more than 26 years. Though he was in a wheelchair, he stood for justice for the downtrodden by serving on boards such as Goodwill Industries. He stood for justice for the victims and their families, as in the lawsuit of McIntyre versus the United States, where he ruled that the victims' families should receive monetary compensation for the loss of their family member. He stood for the rights of people with disabilities by serving as a board member and even as the board chair of an organization called Partners for Youth with Disabilities, so that he could help make a difference. He wanted society to begin to recognize that they, the disabled, have other abilities, including great intellectual capacity. And he stood for justice for the underrepresented defendants that found themselves facing juries that did not look like them. He led a committee of the court that came up with a plan to help diversify the jury pool. Now, I believe I've exhausted my allotted time, but I hope I've been able to give you a glimpse of the proud Morehouse man that was Reginald C. Lindsay.
Thank you, Mrs. Lindsay. Our third honoree is Donald L. Hens, Morehouse class of 1970. Tonight he will receive the 2014 Benny Service Award. Hens is the founder and chairman of the Board of Friendship Public Charter Schools in Washington, D.C., the largest chartered public school in the nation, serving more than 4,000 students on 6 campuses. After graduating from Morehouse, the St. Louis native moved east to Howard University, where he was charged with developing the government relations department for the university. Throughout his career, he has served in similar roles at Boston University and Dartmouth College. As a person who was raised to serve God, community, and humanity, Hens has turned his personal values into opportunities for youth who need a fighting chance at leading productive and successful lives. As a founder of one of the 16 charter schools, Hens has played a critical role in battling the D.C. government for fair treatment of charter schools, and he's been successful. Today, almost 40% of the students in D.C. attend charter schools, a statistic that has gained the city a national reputation for education innovation, and hence the distinction of being a charter school pioneer. He is listed in Who's Who in America and Who's Who in the World, and has been honored by the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools as an inductee into the National Charter Schools Hall of Fame. In a couple of weeks, Hens will receive the Amtrak Pioneer Award. The award, created by the Washington Wizards basketball team, honors African Americans in the metropolitan D.C. area who have made outstanding contributions in the D.C. community. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me as we welcome the 2014 Benny Service Award recipient, Morehouse alumnus, Mr. Donald L. Hens.
Good morning. I will speak faster so that I can try to get mine in. My family's here, my son and grandkids, daughter-in-law. You guys raise your hand. And my staff is all through here. We were actually supposed to be recruiting this week here at Morehouse and Spelman, and the weather beat us down, I guess. My journey to Morehouse itself was quite interesting. I was vice president of the Young Adult Department of the National Baptist Convention, and the year the convention was held in St. Louis. And interestingly, they had a lineup of speakers, and everyone was just overwhelmed by it all. The first night, the speaker was Dr. Mordecai Wyatt Johnson, president of Howard University. The second night, the speaker was Dr. Benjamin E. Mays. And the third night, the speaker was Martin Luther King. So after that, I said, well, I need to be going to this Morehouse College. So interestingly enough, I did what I usually do, which is break all the rules I possibly can. And I immediately had my transcript airmailed. This will let you know how times have changed. Airmailed to Morehouse, and I got on the phone, and back then Morehouse was so small that there were probably only a few secretaries. They had a few maybe departmental secretaries back then, but the school was so small that almost everybody picked up their own. If you knew how to get the phone, they picked up their own phone. And so I called down, and the person who answered the phone was the registrar, Dr. Hamilton. And I said, my name is Donald Henson, and I want to go to Morehouse College. He said, what? I said, I want to go to Morehouse College. He said, son, we don't enroll people on the phone to Morehouse. I said, well, I am really smart. And I sent my transcript down there already. So I'll call you tomorrow and we'll talk again. And so honestly, the next afternoon I called, wanted to give time for delivery and everything. And Dr. Hamilton picked up the phone and he said, you really are smart. And he said, you can come. And so that's how I got into Morehouse College. Everything about it was confirmed that opening day when the faculty came into Sale Hall in their academic garb, and Dr. Mays stood on the podium and introduced every single faculty member with one hand in his pocket. Those of you who've been around or were around, you knew he would stand like this. And he introduced every single one of them and every single degree and every single college they had. That was it. They didn't have to brainwash me another minute. I did it all myself after that. And the time I spent at this school was among the most memorable times of my life. The most memorable times of my life. If you think about it, it was the turmoil we went through with the school the trustees being locked in. I was a student trustee and was locked in. That brought about an interesting circumstance because Dr. Gloucester called me to the front and said, I need you to find Charles Merrill. Mr. Merrill was the chairman of the board, whose father founded Merrill Lynch. And he said, I need you to find Charles Merrill and make sure he doesn't resign, because that's what was going on. They were saying, we want you to resign, we want you to resign. So I found Charlie sitting up under the table in sort of a cross-legged position, and so I climbed up under the table. Quite a difference between he was about 5'7" or 5'8", and I'm 6'3", so that wasn't really easy. And so I sat there up under the table with him all through the night, just talking. And after that, he started to call. Every few days, he would call on the phone just to talk, see how I was doing. And it came graduation time, near graduation time, and he came down for one of the board meetings, and he said to me, well, where are you going to graduate school? I said, well, Dr. Mays said, if you graduate from Morehouse College, that you can go to Harvard. I said, so I'm probably going to go to Harvard. So he said, well, I'm sending my kids to Stanford. That's an up-and-coming university. That should give you some notion of what Harvard graduates thought of Stanford as an up-and-coming university. And literally, I sent my materials to both schools, and I can remember getting a telephone call from a guy by the name of Boskin, who later became chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors under Ronald Reagan during that failed presidency. And he said, you know, we have all of your materials and everything. You really have great grades. You seem like you'd be successful. It really wasn't why he called, to be quite honest with you. The next thing out of his mouth is, we had this letter from Charles Merrill, and he talks quite a bit about you, like he really knows you. I said, well, I talk to him on the phone practically every day. Is that good enough? And he said, well, yes, thank you. That was the end of the telephone interview. And Mr. Merrill paid my way through graduate school at Stanford University, which you know is a lot of money. And it was a lot of money then, too. But that was just what happened. It was a series of circumstances, and I spoke to the young man who will be introducing me this evening about collecting people like you collect lint on a suit. You have got to maintain those relationships and develop those relationships, because they can be so valuable to you. I'm on the podium. Reggie in school was a good friend. Jim Shelton, I consider one of my sons, and he spends his whole life being beat up by me. And it's just one of those things. You have got to work for what you want. You should not feel comfortable with your life, no matter what you have attained. You should always seek to lead rather than follow. Who cares if anybody agrees with you or not? Who's to say they're going to be right and you're going to be wrong? You got to try your best every single day. You are going to fail at some things. In speaking with our chairman this morning at breakfast, Bob said, it's not that you won't fall, it's how you get up. And I want to assure you that you are going to trip, you're going to fall, but you have got to get up and you have got to push every single day for what you believe is right. Thank you.
Thank you. Our fourth honoree is Dr. John E. Williams, Morehouse College class of 1969. He's the recipient of the 2014 Benny Leadership Award. Williams has given his heart and soul to his beloved alma mater. He served Morehouse for more than 3 decades as the distinguished Mills Lane Professor of Finance, Dean of the Division of Business Administration and Economics, and Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs before retiring last year. In fact, Williams has given so much of himself to Morehouse that he, along with a few of his other distinguished colleagues, may be considered the heartbeat of the Division of Business Administration and Economics. There are dozens of Morehouse men in positions of finance across the world who credit their success to the training they received from him during their time at Morehouse. Williams graduated from Morehouse with a degree in business administration and went on to earn 3 additional degrees from Georgia State University, a bachelor's degree in business administration in accounting and information systems, a master's degree in finance, information systems, and a doctorate in land economics and finance. As a scholar in land economics, Williams has published manuscripts on a variety of topics, and his works have been printed in a host of prestigious volumes, such as the Journal of Real Estate Research. He has presented papers at conferences, serves as the editor of a special issue of the Journal of Real Estate Research, and published a professional code of ethics that was reviewed and approved by the American Real Estate Society Board of Directors. In addition to his extensive writing, Williams holds membership in a number of professional organizations, including the American Finance Association, Delta Sigma Pi Professional Business Society, and the Appraisal Institute and Omicron Delta Epsilon International Economics Honor Society. In retirement, Williams is still writing and doing research in economic-based analysis and software engineering. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the 2014 Benny Leadership Award recipient, Morehouse alumnus and Professor Emeritus, Dr. John E. Williams.
The professor's going to use the podium, if that's okay. Thank you. And take the podium away from a professor. Good afternoon, now it is. Ms. Coleman, thank you for your considerate review of my bio. Sometimes you try to remember some of those things that are included. Let me first thank President Wilson, the Board of Trustees at Morehouse, Chairman Davison, and the Gala Selection Committee for recognizing my professional achievements, and with an alumnus award named for Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, whom I greatly admired and respected. I will share with you that during my undergraduate days here, which overlapped with his presidency, Dr. Mays's, on at least 2 occasions, when I observed him crossing the campus, I detoured to be sure that I could cross paths, to take the opportunity to say, "Good morning, Dr. Mays." One time in particular, I recall running around Hope Hall to do so. And after the greeting, he would remind me to be sure to get to class on time. Let me congratulate my fellow awardees and state that it is with great humility that I feel in being recognized with such stellar achievers. Yes, President Wilson, Morehouse men can feel humility, particularly when they're being recognized by Morehouse. You know, we're charged with listing timely some keys to success, our own success, as well as discussing some of the highlights of our careers. I'm going to do the best that I can within the time allotted here. If you operationally find a career successful, let me just tell you, you already know there are a lot of people that need to be thanked. I'm going to try and do so concurrently as I review my highlights. But before I do that, let me at least give you my first key to success, because we may need to come back there. Ms. Coleman just pulled my coattail when my time is up. I am a professor. This time thing here. A student asked me a couple of years ago, late in my career, Professor Williams, if you had the operation to find success with one key word, what would that be? You know, and he wanted me to do it without really thinking about it. And I said, okay. And there are a lot of candidates there: ambition, intelligence, preparation, and et cetera. And I said, organization. And I said that after nearly a 40-year career. Because implied in organization is components of planning, vision. What is the task? What are the resources necessary to achieve those tasks, or the particular task? That is very important. Now, let me tell you, I connect that with you quickly, and I'll come back to these highlights. But in 2008, President Franklin appointed me to serve as provost. I was concurrently president of the HBCU Business Deans Association, about 60 deans, in heading up an international academic society as program chair, about 1,200 members. I did all that concurrently without planning. I'm not smart enough to do that, to be able to allocate your time efficiently. We may have to come back there. Let me go to some of my highlights. I consider a highlight having been recruited to Morehouse. I had just started my doctorate program, so I did not have a PhD at the time. And Dr. James Hefner appointed me instructor of finance and accounting. And Jim has served as, and I thank him for that, he served as a mentor of mine over the years through his presidencies of various universities. It's a highlight because I had a fairly labor market-wise marketable set of credentials at the time, and that were offering me salaries at least 150% of what I received for coming to Morehouse. Fortunately for me, in retrospect, I had a different utility function, and nothing was as valuable as a job at Morehouse. I also considered a highlight several years later when Dr. Hugh Gloucester appointed me chair of the department, head of the business unit. Dr. Gloucester had many other choices who had finished their doctorates, both internal and external to Morehouse. And I bought a jacket because I was summoned to his office. In those days, we respected elders and people in authoritative positions. I didn't have clothes. I was a doctorate student. So I went downtown and bought a jacket to go to the interview and to tell Dr. Gloucester there are better choices than John Williams. I'd probably be a pretty good professor and maybe even a good researcher, but I'm not an administrative type. His response was, those that can do a good job are generally those that are not interested in the job. The college needs you, and I was young at the time, and that got me, the college needs you. So I didn't figure that out until later. He got me to do that, and he mentored me. He took me to many external meetings with him, and he would write notes to me in the meeting, telling me what was really going on in the meeting, as opposed to what was being said. And so that was very good mentoring for me. Dr. Willis Butch Sheftal, long-term colleague and friend. Chef recruited me twice to Morehouse. He identified me for Jim, and he recruited me back to come back and occupy the Mills Lane and Dowell chair in finance. And Chef and I are long-term colleagues, and we're confidants. I can rely on him, ask him questions, and et cetera, et cetera. So I thank Chef for that. Let me move to my research. Just let me know. Let me move to my research, because my research informs much of my other career highlights. When I returned in the Mills chair, Chef allowed me. I had time to do research, and so I was interested in frontier research. There was a series that was run in land economics and real estate finance called Alternative Ideas to Research. What that meant was, this is not based on any literature, or it's not based on longitudinal analysis or existing literature. It is based on pure thought at the frontier. I was able to publish in that series. And because I was able to publish in that series, I was invited to join some very nice academic societies. I was fortunate enough, even though I worked at a small college, and I also represented our community, because there was no representation, still isn't, quite frankly, in our community in terms of some of the academic associations that I belong to. I was fortunate enough to become president of a very major academic society, representing both Morehouse, a small college, and our community. Later, I was invited to join an international think tank. Again, this is all based on research. They sometimes don't even know who you are until they start talking to you. It's double blind and everything else. Through that academic society, I was able to publish another landmark article that had to do with the application of modern portfolio theory to economic base analysis. And I am still the only African-American fellow in that society. I've been in since 1995. But more importantly, these societies, the Real Estate Academic Society, we had a North American chapter, we had a North American organization, we had an Asian organization, there was a South American organization, and there was a European society. But there was no society on the old continent. And because of that, and in my position, I was able to go down and establish a land economic society in Africa, delivered the inaugural address, and I'm glad to report that my African brothers and scholars, brothers and sisters and scholars now have a journal down there. They're writing across continents and attending these meetings. Am I doing okay? One more minute, because you see I had a plan. I do have some other key components here in terms of career success. The reason I discussed with you first that you have to have a plan and organize well, what I can do for you, the students that are interested in my other key components to successful career, then doing the question and answer period. We really have more time there. You can pose your question at that time. I assume that that was coming. So thank you, Ms. Coleman. Thank you.
I was not going to pull on your coattail. Thank you, Dr. Williams. All right. And thank you and congratulations again to each of our 2014 Benny Award winners. Thank you. Our fifth panelist is an iconic figure and music legend, and for many of us, his music represents the soundtrack of our lives. And before he comes out, we do want to ask that no unauthorized photos or recordings take place, please. Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder has earned 32 #1 singles, 49 top 40 singles, and 25 Grammy Awards, including the prestigious Lifetime Achievement Award. And it doesn't stop there. He is also a Golden Globe recipient, and he has an Academy Award. He's been inducted into the Rock and Roll, the Songwriters, the NAACP, and the Apollo Theater's Hall of Fame. And he was the youngest recipient of the Kennedy Center Honors and is a commander in France's National Order of Arts and Letters. He is also, wait for it, he is a Morehouse dad. Our next honoree, the incomparable Stevie Wonder, is the recipient of the Candle Award for Lifetime Achievement in Arts and Entertainment. As a young boy from Saginaw, Michigan, Stevie Wonder was Motown's golden child. But this child prodigy started honing his musical gifts long before Motown even knew his name. He began playing the harmonica at age 5. He started playing the piano around age 6, and then took up the drums at age 7. Then came his first album titled Little Stevie Wonder, the 12-Year-Old Genius. And as they say, the rest is history. Stevie Wonder is not just a musical genius, but also a social activist. As an artist, songwriter, and producer concerned with major humanitarian issues, Stevie has lent his voice to charities in support of disabilities, HIV/AIDS, cancer, diabetes, hunger, and homelessness, and domestic abuse. He worked tirelessly with Coretta Scott King to spearhead the campaign to make Martin Luther King Day a U.S. national holiday. His advocacy for ending apartheid in South Africa is legendary. In his efforts to support the liberation of South Africa, he wrote the song "It's Wrong, Apartheid," and included exiled South African singers on the recording. That same year, he was arrested during an anti-apartheid protest at the South African Embassy in Washington, D.C. And let's not forget, he accepted his Oscar for "I Just Called to Say I Love You" in honor of Nelson Mandela and the anti-apartheid movement. As further tribute to Nelson Mandela, Stevie released his song "Keep Our Love Alive" in 1990. Today, he is a designated UN Messenger of Peace with special focus on persons with disabilities. He continues to demonstrate the activism that has made him such a vital voice for social progress. Most recently, he stood in support of justice for Trayvon Martin and against the Stand Your Ground law. He is authentic, pioneering, original, and relevant. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the Oscar and Grammy Award-winning entertainer, producer, and songwriter, Mr. Stevie Wonder.
It is truly my honor to be here tonight, this morning. I'm very thankful for the honor of you all asking me to speak and to celebrate this day. I played that song because as a young boy, I was so curious as to the things that we did as a people. Where was Africa? And as I was growing up in school, there was so little discussed when it came to Africa. But I was curious about the rhythms and the voices and the various people that I heard that came from Africa, like Yamasakila, Marion Makiba. And I was so curious about that man that at the age of 5 I heard was fighting against people who were hating people that were black. That I came to know as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I was curious about the various songwriters that wrote songs, like Bob Dylan, and all the various people that talked about the injustices that had to be corrected. So I was inspired as a little boy, long before becoming Stevie Wonder, or Little Stevie Wonder. I was inspired as Stephen Morris of why and how. Why were things the way they were, and how can we make a difference? And so, as much as I love music, I also had a desire in my heart to see changes happening in this world that we lived in. So I use this instrument to play the pain away, but as well to play the hope and the optimism that I had for we as a people and for the world. I used to mark the various voices of places that I never imagined I would go. Sounding like it was from England, like, hello, got us some tea. Or even speaking languages that I didn't even understand, or I wasn't making any sense. Like, it was all just fun because the radio was my eyes and ears to the world. But the great thing about it was my mother. She never allowed me to let my being blind be a disability for me. Not to mention myself, I got in so much trouble as a little kid. So I think of allowing me to have the freedom to do as much as I could do, and even a little more than I was supposed to be doing. So when I got to Motown at the age of 11, I was again so curious as to what did a drum look like? What did a bass look like? What did a piano, electric piano look like? All the various instruments that I was able to see going into me what seemed like a store of instruments and people and sounds that I never heard before. And I thank Motown for those years, because those years, too, were years that helped to inspire me to move into discovery. Today, I'm almost in shock to think that I'm here, sitting in front of all of you, Morehouse men, who will make a difference in the world tomorrow. You'll be the ones who will make the changes that we need to make this world a better place. And you will do it. You'll do it because you know it's possible for this world to be far greater than people could ever imagine. Because it takes the very most important thing for all of us to have, and that is passion. I believe that passion is what has driven me all the years of my life. To have a passion, a love for it, a love for music, a love for people, a love for life, a yearning for seeing a better future, a love to seeing an end to prejudice, to hatred, a desire to see the laws change, an excitement to feel and know that all of us know that for the first time, there will be people who will have health care. As much as there are those who would like to push the spirit of positivity back, a spirit of positivity is far greater. It will forever outrule negativity. So I'm very, very happy to know the things that are happening that will move us forward. It was an amazing journey coming from Los Angeles to here. It was hard driving from the hotel here. But we made it. Because in the spirit of seeing what we can do and what can happen, what we must do, we're here together. I didn't prepare a speech. I just wanted to come here to say, first of all, with everything that I've done and achieved, it is because of the love that you've given me. It's because of the spirit of hope that you've given me. It is because of the promise that I see in every single one of you, including my son, Kwame. Some years ago, I was honored with the pleasure of becoming an honorary Morehouse man. But with all the things that have been said about what I've done and how I have achieved the various things, my greatest desire is to see a world where every single person with a disability can move around this world freely. My desire is to see an America where there are talking signs for those who are blind, where there's nowhere that a person who is either paraplegic or quadriplegic can't go, where there's information for those who are deaf, where there's nothing that is impossible for anyone. And we can do this First of all, by inclusion. I'm believing that if more things were made, keeping in mind that there are those who are blind, there are those who are deaf, there are those who are quadro or paraplegic, and making the products that are produced accessible for the people of all of those disabilities. It will then allow us to be able to feel and be more independent because we have everything available to us so that we can do what we need to do. Example, the iPhone. I probably can use the iPhone better than you. But the point is, I think just with the brilliance of making the app inside the phone so that all you have to do is tap to a certain place and then it becomes speech accessible. And as well, you can tap the app that will make it accessible for you to use Braille, the various Braille devices. So I'm encouraging all the various companies as well as you, future scientists and discoverers, to create the technology to make the world closer for everyone. Music has been the source by which God has given me to sing and spread the message. But it is the love that God has given me those songs to, along with all the songs, talk about things that are relevant to making this world a better place for everyone. Whether you have a love for someone, or along with that having a love for life, and a love for growth, and a love for country, and a love for a better time that we all look forward to. I congratulate all of you for what you have done, but I'm even more excited about what you will do. I'm praying for the very best for all of you, and I look forward to those great achievements that you will attain. I thank you, and that's it.
Thank you. Thank you all for those incredible stories and reflection. And at this time, we want to take a moment to answer some of the questions that some of our students and other members of the audience have for all of you this afternoon. And we have two mics at the front. Don't be shy. We'll kind of alternate from mic to mic.
Ms. Coleman, may I indulge?
Yes,
Just
please.
a second. I was remiss in not recognizing my family members that are present here. My wife and son-in-law and grandson, as well as my daughter, whom I danced with for the first several years of her life to the sound, "Isn't she beautiful? Isn't she wonderful?" Thank you for that indulgence.
Thank you.
Well, I must tell you that I'm expecting for you to give me a little money for that.
Hi, my name is Emmanuel Payton. I'm Vice President at Large for the Morehouse College Alumni Association. And on behalf of the Alumni Association, we are so proud of our honoree. And let's give them a hand, please.
Thank you.
The challenge of being a board member is to try to assemble vehicles that offer us an opportunity to touch the leadership. So I'd like to invite the honorees. We have the event April 27th in Washington, D.C., where our very own John Wilson will be the preacher of the hour. And I say that as probably particularly Brother Shelton, Brother Hintz, as local Washington alumni, what vehicles do you see that lead you to participate on the alumni side? And what would you like to see from the Alumni Association?
I'll be happy to. Can I say that both the things that I have seen over the past 5 or 6 years with the National Alumni Association have absolutely been fantastic. I think what you have to have in all of these things is a reasonable assessment of what these organizations can and should be doing. And I think that also goes as an alumnus in our relationship to the college. We never seem to graduate to the role of being supporters and advocates for. And nothing is going to be perfect. I don't care where it is or when. But what you can do is give what you have to make it better. And I think until we move to that role, then we're always going to be in the middle of the Morehouse. You can tell us because we run our mouths so much. But I think we've made some gigantic steps as an alumni association. I really like the 300 plan of getting kids out of here when you would be shocked as someone who runs a school how often it is that we as a K-12 school system come up with thousands of dollars to keep a kid in school or to make it so that kid can take that final examination to get out of school. So you've got to be there, and I think that's a fantastic program.
Sure. Only thing I would add is clarity of focus. As usual, the people who are going to do most of the work are the people who are already busiest. And so being able to be clear about what needs to get done, how, and leverage people where they are, that's something we need more of.
Congratulations to all the panelists. Mr. Shelton and anyone else who wants to speak on this, I am kind of passionate about public education. And I'd like to know how can we, as a nation, from your perspective and your history, get politicians to focus on the issue and not re-election, but the issue of educating and making sure that our children get what they need. Thank you.
So I will say up front that I actually don't know how to get the politicians to pay attention. The reality is that the need has never been more clear. The opportunity has never been more clear. The potential ways that we can improve outcomes for our children have never been more clear. We've got example after example, like Donald Pence and others around the country that are doing outstanding work with our young people. And the question becomes, what are we going to do to create a context where we can take these islands of excellence and scale them so every child has that opportunity? This is no longer a question of can we, this is a question of will we. And that is a question of will, and unfortunately it's a question of politics. And so, recognizing the role that I sit in, I sit here today in my personal time on Saturday afternoon, and I say that until someone makes people feel uncomfortable not doing something about it, I don't think anything's going to change. I don't think that asking nicely is going to change things. I don't think that talking about it politely is going to change things. So at the federal level, there are a lot of things that we're going to do to try and create a context for this work to happen. It has to translate through the state. It has to translate to the local level. But in the end, people have to feel accountable for doing something better for our children. And right now, there are people who feel accountable to a lot of other interests besides our children. There are people who make a lot of money. There are people who enjoy a lot of power. And it is at the expense of our young people getting what they need. And that needs to stop, as you know. Thank you.
Hi, this is for Mr. Wonder. Mr. Wonder, I'm Roz, and as a booking agent in the music business for, I want to say 20 plus years, and booking headline artists all over the country, I'm often being asked the question from new emerging artists, how do they get in the music business? As you know, things have changed. There's not a lot of radio stations with live people on the stations. How do they get their music into headline talent's hands? And I just don't have answers. Can you help me out?
Well, I have a record company right in the back there, so you know. No, I'm very happy to, first of all, say that I believe in local radio. As much as we have a lot of stations that are national, a lot of programs that are national, I think it's very important to have local radio stations be committed to local talents. And for the last almost 30 years, I've owned a station that is licensed by the city of Compton, California, KGLH. And we, as much as we play the national songs, the national hits, and we have, you know, Steve Harvey on our station, we do acknowledge and commit to playing music by local talents. I think that the commitment has to be with a combination of the various stations. I encourage you young people to, if you're into broadcasting, to definitely go after, whether it be with a group putting your monies together, but go after, you know, there being more black-owned stations. I mean, we need more of that because it's fading away fast, unfortunately. And I think that musically, as well as socially, and as well politically, we can tell our story best. So that's how I encourage that. And I think that obviously a lot of companies are buying up a lot of companies, but I think it goes around and around and around. You know, you have big conglomerates, and then they'll break off, and it'll start over again. I mean, if you remember back in the day, there was all the various big companies, but out of those big companies, when no one was really paying attention, there came a Motown Records from Detroit, Michigan. So I think that if you have the spirit of doing your music, and if there are people that are doing good things with music, then get together with them and work out that music. And obviously, I think if it's good enough, you will get the attention of the people.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Calvin Swint. I am a junior political science major from Newark, New Jersey. Mr. Wonder, I just want to thank you for being here. You're a great source of inspiration in my life. Particularly Higher Ground has inspired me a significant amount in my life. My question, though, is for Mr. James Shelton. I have read about 4 books on policymaking, so I understand the process, but I would like to understand, or if you could provide some advice and some insight to the challenges that come along with policymaking.
So the first thing I would say is I don't know what books you read. But I had read a lot of books too before I got there. This is my first role in government. It doesn't work like that. The mechanics are all the same, but where the power lies in actually initiating ideas, shaping ideas, and ultimately the ideas that and the intentions that a particular piece of policy started with landing where it was supposed to. The mechanics of that are much more complex than were any of the books that I had read before. And And so what I would say are, there are three really important things to know. One is, if you're talking about the federal level, we all are now living in a world where money has an incredible impact on everything that happens. It is becoming more true in the state and local level, but I don't think people really understand what the impact of Citizens United had in allowing corporations and other individuals to invest very directly in elections has had on even what we think as everyday mundane policymaking in the country. The ramifications of that are yet to be seen. The second thing I would say is that if you really want to understand really good policymaking, you want to spend time going between folks who are both on the think tank, action work on the outside, as well as working for folks inside state and federal legislators. The interplay between those two things is critical. I told somebody earlier, like from the federal level, you're always shooting like a triple bank shot. You're trying to do something in hopes that the states do something, in hopes that local actors do something that ultimately improves people's lives. Understanding those connecting points is really important. And then the last thing I would say really quickly is, one thing we fail to do often in policymaking is to think all the way through what the incentives are that we're creating. And my classic example on this one is higher education. Yeah. We created a higher education system that was very much, created the incentives for getting more people into college. We forgot one thing, to create incentives for getting people out of college. And so now we have a system that does exactly what it was designed to do. Lots of people come in, unfortunately not so many people come out. Our graduation rates, our dropout rates are higher in higher ed than in high school. So getting your policymakers to think through those second and third order incentives and implications, a huge deal. And in your policymaking, something that you should really understand. People don't like to think about our public sector as a market. It is, it has incentives, it drives rational behaviors, and we need to know what those are. Sorry for the long answer.
I would like to add that as an academic, sound research also influences, notwithstanding the politics, it does influence policy making.
But money plays a huge role, and I can say what Jim probably would say if he weren't in the government. The issue that, no, it's the truth.
Yeah.
The issue that you have, if you have interest groups who spend so much money that they convince people who have no health insurance that they don't need it, and that it's okay for you to die, something is wrong.
Yeah.
Something is wrong with that. And you have politicians, so obviously the political process is a strange one. So you have politicians who can stand up and say, this is bad, this is bad, this, and just by saying this is bad, you had folk who were dying of cancer with no health insurance saying, oh, Obamacare is bad. Well, how do you know it hasn't even started yet?
But I must say that any politician that says that, really, you can look them in the face and know how ridiculous they are in the first place, how stupid that is, because the reality is we voted for Obama because we could feel his heart, his spirit, and his commitment. So we pay them no mind. We shouldn't anyway.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Ollie Barnes. I'm a freshman at Morehouse College, business administration major from Michigan. My question is for Mr. Wonder. I've been a fan of your music since I was born. My mother used to play music all the time. You're actually her favorite musician. As a musician, I've been playing the piano since I was 7, and I've been writing music since I was 13. So
Stop. Don't do it. No, I'm kidding.
Now, my question to you was, I understand that in any field you go into, whether it's music or business or law or whatever, it's easy to get discouraged. And I was wondering, like, how did you combat being discouraged and being frustrated, pursuing your career?
I've always had a passion for for music. I always had a love for it. I had a passion for wanting to know about radio stations. I've had a passion about wanting to see a better place for our family, our people. So I think that if you have the passion, nothing can stop you. If someone's bothering your mother or your father, you have that passion to handle that situation the best way you know how. So I think that I say the word passion because I remember clearly when I was in the 4th grade at the school in Detroit, and my father was trying to take me from my mother, and he was saying things like, she's got a missing school, trying to do music, he should be in school, and all that, and just creating a lot of lies. And so the woman at the school said to me, listen, you need to go to school. Now, she didn't know that already they had worked out a system where when I would go on the road, I would have a teacher, and they'd worked everything out with the school and all that. But she said to me very clearly, she said, listen, you've got 3 strikes against you. You're blind, you're black, and you're poor. And if you don't want to end up making potholders and rugs, you need to go to school. And I said, I don't mean to be rude, miss, but all that is going to be handled, and I know that God means for me to do this. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. And, you know, I went in the bathroom and started crying and all that, but my tears only encouraged me to have even a greater passion and belief in the fact that that's what I was meant to do. Or through that as well, I will be able to use that as a vehicle to say the things that I felt, to talk about conditions where we live. And most of all, I just believe that someday I would be blessed to be able to make my mother truly a queen for the day. So it worked out.
Good morning. My name is Joy Hamer. I'm a sophomore English major with a creative writing minor at Spelman College from Malvern, Pennsylvania. And to someone who has an interest in journalism, I would like to say, Ms. Coleman, your bio is very impressive as well as extremely inspiring. But my question is that I had a brother who graduated from Morehouse in 2004 with an economics degree. While most of his peers went on to Wall Street, he pursued a career in education. So to that, I would like to ask if you all could expound upon the opportunities for black males in the education field.
Huge. The single biggest question we are asked often by mothers bringing their kids to school is, can my son have a male teacher? And I'm talking about an elementary school. I mean, they fight for male teachers. And we, when I said we were down here recruiting, we're down here recruiting for a reason. And that is we're trying to get young black males interested in teaching so that our boys can have role models. It is absolutely necessary. It's extremely difficult, whether we want to believe it or not. And I think we all say that if we've got one good parent, that will do it. I can absolutely tell you that boys need male role models. If you don't know what the prospects are for you, and think about it, we have kids who come to school now who have never been on a college campus, who have never seen a college campus, and you have to take them on college tours. We have kids who have never seen males in positive roles except a police officer. Think about that. So there's a space, and it's frankly a very big space that needs to be occupied.
And the only thing I would add to that is, in addition to the frontline educator role, like I'm very happy to hear about the brother going into policy, there are a lot of things that shape the context of education. And our voices are not in those rooms. They are not in those rooms. And people bring their lived experience, whatever it is, to that policy-making process, to all the things that they do. And if our perspective is not in that room, then we suffer for it. The caricatures of what they think our lives are like are the things that drive their decisions, that allow people to make paternalistic decisions for us, that cost us. And so it is not just the opportunity in the classroom or to lead schools or even to lead systems, but to play throughout the ecosystem that shapes what is education for people in this country.
Hello, this question is for Stevie Wonder. I am Candy Soul. I'm a singer-songwriter, and I am so happy right now. It's always been a dream to just be in your presence. Your music has inspired me so much. As a kid, when I heard your songs, that's what made me want to become a singer and a songwriter. And your music inspires me to want to write songs that mean something. And my question for you is, who influenced you musically, and how did you get your start musically as a kid?
Well, I think my greatest, the greatest influence I've had in my life has been life itself. God has given me the tools. Life has given me as well the software to write about, and my family. I mean, I have and have had a wonderful family, and so as much as we've had very wonderful moments, we've had unfortunate moments as well. But I thank God for those moments too, because it is through those moments that you're able to appreciate the wonderful things that you are blessed with. And so all those things, all the experiences, every single one has influenced me to write music. I'm sure that sitting here amongst these great men will encourage and inspire me as well to write songs, because again, as much as I write love's in need of love today, boys are in need of men today to encourage and inspire them. And we are in need of the woman to support and inspire us as well. So I think we work together to make great things happen. I know that's possible with writing songs. In the beginning, I was just writing music and melodies to songs. And for years, I carried around this brown, big bag of reel-to-reel tapes that ultimately turned into carrying around a bag of cassettes, that turned into carrying around a bag of DATs, and so forth and so on. But I sort of committed myself to ultimately showing the writers that are working with me a song that I wrote a music and melody for. It was called Oh My Marsha. And I wrote this song about a girl named Marsha that I liked. And I played it for my producer at the time, the late Henry Cosby, and the songwriter Sylvia Moy. And they said, Omar Marshall, you really want to write that? I said, yeah, that's my girlfriend. But the moment we broke up, I said, yeah, change the words. And so that song became Ma Chérie Amour. But the point is, I had just a da-da-da-da. I mean, it was, oh, my Marsha, da-da-da-da-da, oh, my Marsha. We broke up, it's Ma Chérie Amour. But I would say to you, as a writer, don't ever stop. And the thing about writing is, I think reading is very important. Reading the news, watching television, listening to radio, and just your experiences that you have. I remember the song I wrote at a time when we had been on the road and came back to Detroit, and my mother had to be rushed to the hospital. I remember at the time I was very, very a big fan of Cannonball Adderley and the album that Nancy Wilson did with his group. And I was very much into jazz. So I wrote this, women in the sky. That's all I had. But I wrote that song in the basement of my mother's house at a time when we were really worried about how she was going to be. So I can say to you, sometimes when you're in the most crucial situations, you can write the saddest songs, and vice versa. So just be encouraged to write and use every opportunity as your tool, your instrument that you will use to write that lyric.
Unfortunately, we are just about out of time. This will be our last question.
Good afternoon. My name is Jalen Smith. I'm a freshman business major from Macon, Georgia, here at Morehouse College. And my question is to Mr. Wonder as well. It goes without saying, I too am a fan of your music. And I want to ask you a question about your advocacy against apartheid in South Africa. In '85, you were arrested for your advocacy against it. And it's possible for one to say that your song, Apartheid, was eventually a catalyst for the releasement of Nelson Mandela in prison and for the dismantlement of apartheid in South Africa. So what was your zeal and your motivation to pursue advocacy in a manner that others weren't doing, such as music?
You know, I felt it was wrong. Very simply, I felt that it was wrong. To know that a man had lived some almost 30 years in prison, fighting against the oppression of apartheid, knowing what we have gone through as a people in this nation, knowing that people in various countries have been oppressed and some are still oppressed, knowing that that was not the spirit of the God that I serve. I just felt it was wrong. But as much as I felt that was wrong, I also felt that for us to spend years and years kind of like begging, hoping that, you know, going on and on, complaining that we don't have a holiday for Dr. King, I felt that we had to really take it to a positive place and say, look, this is a celebration for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but as well for every single person, whatever their ethnicity may be, that lives and that has died for the principles that we say the Constitution is based on. So why should we not have a national holiday for Dr. King? Let's make this thing happen. Because I believe that if you're able to see and envision the positive, nothing is impossible. Maybe me driving on the highway at this point might be a little difficult, but. And I must say that I think that, not including myself, but we have men that are sitting here that are encouraging all of you, as we are, to believe that the greatest part of you is waiting to come out. So let it do that. And let nothing of the negative hold you back.
And one more time, let's thank all of our honorees, our panelists this morning for giving us these words of wisdom. Thank you all. This concludes our program. Thanks for coming. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe.